Here's how to get smart without getting lucky and enjoy it along the way by doing it with people that you love. The most important thing and the number one lesson is to learn from others. There's a famous idea where if you want to get good at a particular subject in school, you sit next to the smartest person in the class and you basically just copy what they do. Essentially, if you can just find 5 or 6 people who are at your level of intelligence or advance in their training and just ask them, how do they do what they do and how do they achieve their success, then you have a whole breadth of ideas on how to revolutionize the way you study. It's an entirely different game to say, how would you study this or how are you studying this? And that will give you ideas on what works for certain people. Some people love mind maps and are constantly writing things down. But the one example that strikes out to me was when I was early on in uni, there was a person who could basically review any topic essentially once or twice, and then they would just use that knowledge for the exams. Whereas I was doing my spaced repetition and reviewing things 4, 5, or 6 times, and I realized, how is it possible that this person can do this? And so that taught me the lesson of, well, if it is actually possible, because they were doing very well as well, if it is actually possible to get things right with 1 or 2 repetition, I need to change what I'm doing. And so if you work out what the best are doing, and that will redefine what is possible for you. So we need to work out what the best do. Then we need to incorporate their ideas. So for those who follow cricket, there are a bunch of bowlers who are essentially the people who throw the ball, who have grown up watching cricket and now play professionally. But every time they saw one of their heroes on TV do well, they would take a part of their bowling action and incorporate it into their own. And I think that's what we should do when we talk to other people. If there's anyone who seems to be doing better than us or doing the same with less time or more fun, we need to take an aspect of what they're doing. So simple thing to do that is ask them how they're studying and lay it out, and then just try things. Experiment with things. That's point number 3. And people often say, oh, you study this way, but I study this way. This is what works for me. But how would you know unless you tried all sorts of things? Experiment with flashcards, mind maps, every single different way of doing it. And especially the people who are more advanced and the people who have to study on a time budget, doctors working full times who have still got to pass their exams. How do they study? And can you incorporate any ideas from that? And I found when you talk to doctors who are working full-time studying their exams, they have a really interesting way of taking them, which is essentially where you do the reverse of what we're taught in school. Because in school, we start at the textbook, then you do a bunch of reading from the textbook, and then you apply that knowledge on exams and practice questions. Whereas the doctors start with the exams and practice questions. So they'll sit an exam, let's say it's on anatomy, and then they'll work out, on my head and neck anatomy, that was pretty good. I got like 4 out of 5, but on my arm anatomy, I only got 2 out of 5. And so that will dictate what they then study. So then they will study more arm because they're weaker in that and less head and neck. And so they'll go to the textbook based on what their weaknesses are revealed by the exams. So the exam and questions provide the diagnosis on what you're weak in and what you need to study. And then you can follow that up with textbooks. Now, I can hear people saying, well, what if I know nothing about the exam when I start, and so I'm just going to get 0%? Okay, fair enough. But still go question by question. Maybe you're doing methods and you open up the exam and the first question is a calculus question and you've got no idea how to do it. Then you can learn the calculus. And once you know what the exam questions are, that will change what you're learning, because the way you learn will be different based on what sort of knowledge you require. If you have to do multiple choice questions, you're starting from a different way than if you learned and was trying to apply it in an interview context. And so I think it's an interesting idea. Will it work in all contexts? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, get exposed to these ideas because one of them could change your life. Hopefully this is helpful. And if it was, make sure you are tuned into this space, because each week I'll be posting a study video on a Sunday and a UCAT related video on a Wednesday. Thanks very much, guys, and I'll see you next time.